hero.
Have you any hobbies?
My hobbies are fast cars and fast women.
Hobbies are healthy. They teach you things.
Are you ready? Are you ready?
And we're in. It's another edition of the show that you want, that gets you caught up from the week that was exciting in the United Football League. It is Around the UFL with a bunch of our wonderful hosts and panelists from the UFL newsroom that we have on every week. It is a great time. Welcome you all into the chat, and for others that are coming in or watching this on replay later, welcome aboard. I am Zach Kyleman, hosting as always this week, and ready to gear you up for really just kind of touching back on the week that was mid-season in the United Football League. We are officially there, everybody. We have crossed the Wednesday marker of the league's regular season. It is officially now on the back half. Crazy to believe, but we officially have arrived. Before we dive farther in, though, of course, I got to bring in and talk about the folks that are on this show this week. And boy, we got a great cast this week, as always. You know it. Right next to me, everybody's been wanting to talk to him. It is Ducky over on my right side on the screen. Good to have you in, buddy. How's it going for you, man? What's
good.
new?
Not much. Just watching some bad defenses play in the UFL.
And we're gonna. It is fun fact. It is National Shrimp Scampi Day. Some cooking was being made just in the wrong sense in DC last week. So we talking a little bit about that fun stuff though. And I know that I know Ducky's got some words on that. He's got a whole thing ready to go. Stay tuned for that. The ref on the other side. Hey, how's it going, man? Is it preseason? Is it giddy up season for you?
I mean, my team's doing great, dude. Giddy up, 12-0. We are like unstoppable right now. I mean, I've always told everybody, if you're going to pick a team, it's got to be the Birmingham Stallions. There's a reason they were champions back-to-back in the USFL, and they're about to be the champions this year in the UFL because we all know the ref is the biggest Stallions fan. Giddy up, 12-0, baby. Let's go. I don't know who would be a Roughnecks fan because, I mean, that team is trash. Am I right? I don't know what's going on out there in Houston. God.
For folks at home, that's three fandoms that some sort of persona of the ref here
Well, the one
has
doesn't
referenced
count.
in recent years. It is the lore, it grows, and so does the change of pace to keep things ahead of the game. We'll let you'll talk more. It's fine. James, how's it going? I understand the road trip has finally wrapped up. It is one of the it's been probably one of the epic spring football road trips or trips of all time, as I'm going to put it, because man, just like the song says, seems like you've been everywhere.
Yeah, it was. It's been a really long few weeks, but very fun, very entertaining. There's lots of good football being played, and it was a lot of fun hanging out with Ref down there in Houston. With those Roughnecks. I know he doesn't like to talk about them too much right now, but at least I do want to say their one win was the game that I was present at. So I might just have to swing down there to Houston a little bit more often if the Roughnecks want to win some more games. We'll see, but yeah, doing well and excited to be on the show again.
Team up with him and the Refla. Go on down. Me a good luck charm. Throw on the glasses again. Ref cam with James Larson on the hosting duties.
I think you have a point, James. I think they were trying to show off for the camera, get all their good plays in while the James Larson was out on the field getting them shots and
had to represent, man.
I mean, I don't know, but I will say, I had some Panthers players telling me that they got the win yesterday for my birthday. So, you never know.
There we go.
Wow. That's the real ones right there. Talk about some real people right there. Nice job. Jared, glad to have you back on, man. Wow, look at this. Now we're getting consecutives here. Second show for you, my man. I got to ask, because again, you put this up. How the things hit this week? How did the bets go? I got to ask.
Oh, yeah. 3-0. So second 3-0 week of the season. Also had an 0-3 week, though, week 2. So you've seen both sides, but it's looking
talk about the losses.
Well. It was a good weekend, good games, and I was happy with the outcomes.
Is Jared our ESPN representative here today, or what's the?
100%. Every 5 minutes, I'll throw in, what's the over?
Yes, please.
Stormy will be happy. She will. You'll be your biggest fan by the end of your run on this show, guaranteed, my man. Guaranteed. Well, guys, hell of a week it was this week. And honestly, I think, we just leading in, because look, instant reacts, I want to hear from the table, but I'll just give it straight. Someone put it better than I did. We're seeing the conferences are indeed top heavy, it looks like. And, midway through the season, they're not saying races are done, but the vibe I'm getting is that I think we have solidified who are the pretenders and contenders in both conferences now. And now it's just going to be seeing kind of jockeying for position and kind of gauging the power levels on either side of the conference divide. Feel free to hit the floor, but that's my final reaction from the end of the week that really I think stuck out. Now that we have, one undefeated, 2 3-1s, or one undefeated, 2 4-1s, and now a 3-2, and bottom half of the league, it seems, is nowhere in sight to be really keeping pace right now.
Yeah, it's a shame because I think we were talking about this in the Discord, which if you're not in the Discord, link down below. It's probably the greatest thing that we've created by accident. It's amazing. If you love pro football, you'll like it. If you don't love pro football, you'll find something interesting in there, I'm sure. But yeah, the one sad thing about this season that seems like we might be seeing here is the playoff teams already solidified. One of the things that I loved with both the XFL and the USFL last year is it essentially came down to the last week, unless you were the Stallions, which 12-0, giddy up. But like this year, we're already seeing it's probably going to be Birmingham and Michigan. No, Houston and Memphis are not out. They only have to win 4 games. But, the Panthers also need to lose those 4 games. There's 5 games left in the season. Slim margin of error there. Memphis, I'm a little bit surprised of. Houston, clearly I'm surprised by. I know on the XFL side, and Ducky, you'll have, I'm sure, more to say about this as I do. But before we get to that, the XFL champions being 0-5. We knew, okay, they went in to the championship last year, 4-6, won the championship. But this year, 0-5. They're not even going to, they're probably not even going to get the record that they saw last year that saw them in the championship. And then DC, who on the flip side of the coin went 9-1 going into the season, lost to the Renegades. I mean, they can't seem to catch a break. They have 2 wins on the season, but the loss they took over this weekend against the Battlehawks, which, you know, one thing that I'll give the Battlehawks, they are reliving last year. And they're looking at this and saying, look, if there's ties, anything can happen. We don't want to get shut out of the playoffs. What happened last year? We had to get to that last game and throw up a boatload of points. They threw up a boatload of points, and it still wasn't enough points. And so what do? Halfway through the season, finally get that win over DC. Finally hand DC a loss at home, and they did it in... They made a mockery of that team. Let's be honest here. They made the defenders... They kind of toyed with them in the first half and said, yeah, this is anybody's game. Once you got to that second half, and it wasn't just that the Battlehawks were that great. It was that the defenders were making the dumbest mistakes. And I don't know. Ducky, I know you have your thoughts on defense and all of this. I don't want to take up everybody's time here on this. But,
Greggy boy.
I mean, is this not the greatest... Like, Jared, you'll know, because you were a Generals fan. You went from going from a 9-1 team to a team not so great. This might be a bigger collapse. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's that Generals team didn't even win their playoff game. So, yeah, it's at least DC made it to the championship. But, yeah, I wrote about that prior to the season. I could see something similar, losing all those playmakers. It's quite a fall off, honestly. They were so dominant last year.
Yeah, and some of the identity, like I said, I can't lean everything on, like, say, you know, Abram Smith or anything like that, but it has been certainly impressive. But I also think, and I think especially with how St. Louis has shown up here, and James, I want to hear your thoughts on this. I think that a lot of the other examples from this week are showing that, you know, talent level is close across the league, easily, no doubt. But there just are teams that have 1 or 2 position groups that just are a bit better, and sometimes execution does not always live it up. Like we saw DC, for example. I mean, one of my favorite plays this week was that 80-yard touchdown pass to Harrison Butler, and he just strongmanned the entire play. We're talking about a Moss type of play, excellent ball placement from A.J. McCarron. Again, great quarterback. And some of that just comes down to talents, along with the fact that line play, more and more as the year goes on, shows that the better O-lines, as expected in spring football especially, they matter a ton. And it adds just that bit more to what you're able to do.
No, you're absolutely right. And I think for St. Louis, talking about that O-line, they kept so many of their guys from last year. And we're seeing that chemistry. We're seeing that camaraderie that they had from a season ago helping out. And just watching the Battlehawks this year, it feels like McCarron has as much time as he wants to throw. It almost to an extent, and not exactly in the same fashion, but it's similar to, like, you know, those really good Tom Brady teams where Brady just had 6-7 seconds. It was like every time in the pocket, he had no pressure. And that's why the Patriots are so good, because Brady had all the time in the world to throw. And if you give Brady all the time in the world to throw, he's going to get you. And the same thing is happening here with A.J. McCarron, where he has a lot of time in the pocket. He's comfortable. He's not worried about getting rattled. I mean, yes, there are some defenses that have gotten after him, but I feel like this year he's done a good job of extending the plays with his legs as well, utilizing that to an extent. I mean, we saw him do that with the touchdown to Jacour Pearson back in week 4 against Memphis. But across the board, for A.J. McCarron to have the amount of time that he does consistently week in and week out, there's a reason why that team put up 45 points. I mean, they're firing on all cylinders right now.
Yeah, incredible performance right now for St. Louis, and it has been getting better. And I'll be honest with you, it just has added on to the discussion and look ahead to what is a Stallions St. Louis matchup in just about 2 weeks. I mean, that game is getting a ton of hype. We're still 2 weeks out. Credit, both teams still need to play well and not look ahead, as we'll discuss this week. But man, it's setting the stage for one hell of an epic interconference matchup before we even get the playoffs or any possibility of what that could be as starting to become one of the favorites to be the championship matchup.
Yeah, well, and you know what else we're seeing too, and Luke pointed this out on social media the other day, State of the Stallions, was, you know, if things stay the way they are, we're going to see Birmingham play Michigan in the final week of the season. Then they're going to go and potentially go play them back-to-back going into the playoffs. And sometimes that works in your favor. Sometimes it doesn't. Right.
It did for
Case in point
Philadelphia
with the
2 years
Renegades
ago.
and the Roughnecks. Right. So I don't know. You can never count anything out in spring football. It does seem like things are top heavy. Anything can happen. DC's still in this. Houston, believe it or not, Memphis, they're still in this.
Still got 5 weeks.
Believe it or not, Arlington is still in this somehow. Maybe only for
their
one more
odds
week.
are at least a little bit more extreme. I mean, Memphis or Houston, if you can pick up 2 wins, and if Michigan loses 2 games, it's like these things are possible. Like, remember Philadelphia Stars last year were 4-3. It looked like they had that North Division locked up, and then they lose 3 straight games. So Michigan, they're in a good spot, but no guarantees. They got to make sure they're staying on top of their game. Because, yeah, if Houston or Memphis could just find a way to get hot at the right time, you never know. Arlington, I'm sure, there's plenty of thoughts we can get to on that end once we get to those game recaps and whatever, but they don't have a chance. Their Cinderella run was a fluke last year, and I think it's over.
I almost want to dive just into that because I feel like that's such a discussion by itself. And this week in particular, I felt like the final bit of the analysis was done, at least on my end, on this entire thing. In particular because I cannot believe the game plan that Chuck Long called at so many instances during this game. Because look, San Antonio clearly very talented. Clearly has guys that in terms of pass game on the outsides are going to burn anyone in the secondary. But look, man, you get 3 interceptions, and then I watch an offensive game plan where it's like, oh yeah, AJ Smith, he runs trick plays pretty cool. He changes up play structure. Let's run like sweeps at like the least convenient time. Let's throw in Lindsey Scott to like completely destroy our momentum and game plan when we're getting on a really good rhythm on a drive. Let's just do wonky things because wonky might change something. There's no like purpose to it. It's just that it's in the playbook probably. Why not? Let's see if it does something. At every step of the way, trick plays, different formations, the QB changes to Lindsey Scott failed every step of the way. This is the Lindsey Scott choices this week are in what I would consider me and Jared's no 2 QB system fan club type of conversation because they were complete drive killers at a lot of times, and I don't think Scott was wanting to be out there if you saw him on broadcast. So I just I throw up my hands. I think I have finished off my combo on anything Arlington. There was a sleepwalk loss. That is a marker of a bad team. If you sleepwalk your way to a loss, even when you are on the doorstep of being competitive and possibly should get a win on a bad day, you meet up with a good team. That was a sleepwalk to a loss right there. Classic.
Speaking of Lindsey Scott, to me, it's a little fascinating that Arlington goes out with the first pick in the dispersal draft, selects Lindsey Scott, and then they decide to just hardly utilize him. And when they utilize him, it's just at awkward times. It doesn't feel like it's more so they're just throwing him out there because they're like, all right, let's get him on the field.
He can run.
Right, exactly. There's
run.
not really many design plays for him other than just, letting him do a little RPO or something like that every so often. But one has to think that if you went back to that draft, there were some other guys on the table. Like what would happen if they threw Ja'Cour Pearson into that offense instead and just rolled with Perez at QB1? I don't know. There's so many hypotheticals there, but to me, it's just interesting. You select him first overall and just don't use him in the right way whatsoever. And last week, and I think every week on this show, I've talked about the Arlington running backs. And I'm going to do that again this week. So I hope you guys are ready because Zach,
we knew it was coming. We knew it was coming, though.
Zach, it's time. I know we're not even in the game recaps yet or anything, but screw it. We're going all in on Arlington right now, but not in the best way, not in the Houston Gamblers all in type of way from last year. Zach, I know you're Mr. Digits. That's your thing. Me, I think I've got a little alter ego of anti-Arlington digits. All right, and that's what we're going to do today. Let's take a look. Let's take a look at what happened this weekend where we saw Morgan Ellison, who was in training camp with the Arlington Renegades, gets cut, He joined San Antonio midseason, and really this was his first game where he actually got touches. He puts up 84 yards on just 7 carries. Okay, that's more than what Arlington as a whole. Arlington as a whole in that game, 59 yards between all of their backs. Okay, now a little more of a deep dive into these stats. There is not one Arlington rusher that has had more yards in a game this season than what Ellison just did against them in that game in week 5. And the kicker, Ellison was not even the San Antonio Brahmas leading rusher that night. John Lovett had more rushing yards than Morgan Ellison. It's just like, what are we doing in Arlington, man? This team is a disgrace. Ellison in one game on just 7 carries had more rushing yards than Arlington has had in 4 of 5 games this season. I rest my case. It's just disastrous personnel decisions across the board and coaching. It's just everything. Arlington is a disaster. I'll be surprised if they win a game this year.
I am labeling you the loyalist, for that is an opposite of a renegade. So
there we go.
James is the loyalist.
Well, we have James's prediction, because I was going to throw out there, are we going to see Stoops get his 200th win this year? And
For real.
There's only 5 more chances left, because it looks like there isn't going to be a 6th or a 7th when it comes to the playoffs here. He's at 199. He has to get one. All he had to do was win 1 game so far this year. He hasn't done it. And I think that he might be it. That might be the reason. Stoops is scared. He's got, it like I brought this up. It's similar to baseball when a pitcher gets the yips, right? They could do everything right, and then they just lose their game when they're getting their head. And that's where Stoops is at. It seems like, possibly. I don't know.
I think it's just being complacent again. Little to no roster movement, like we talked last week. If you're really being serious, you got to start evaluating your roster. Otherwise, like I said, you're just sleepwalking to losses right now. Like this is very much just like phoning in a day at work and just being like, I'm just here for the paycheck. Screw it. Like, just let's walk out. That's what it feels like.
What I want to know is how come nobody's dogging on Stoops like they were dogging on my dude from the Maulers season 1 and his Pizzagate. I mean, same amount of wins, right? And nobody's talking about the Arlington Renegades being the worst team in spring football. But that's all you heard about. The Maulers are dog shit. Blah, 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 blah.
Whoa.
Look at here we are. They're the XFL champions. And they couldn't even win
where's
a
the
game.
censor bar?
Oh,
Thank you. Where's the dump button?
But you get my point here.
Well, I feel like this kind of is already our Arlington San Antonio recap. I mean, it kind of works.
Keep going.
It was the opening game, but maybe moving away, I won't be super anti-Arlington for a moment. San Antonio has some problems too. I mean, that was not very much of a convincing win in my opinion. Now, their running backs did great, which I already highlighted. Quentin Dormady. I don't know how confident I am in him being a potential championship quarterback. I like the 3 interceptions. You got away with one because Arlington's offense just is so bad across the board. Quentin Dormady allowed Arlington to hang around in that game because of those interceptions. They had so much momentum in that first quarter. Dormady makes a couple of mistakes, missed on a couple of balls, and those interceptions. Then why did they decide to throw the football on 2nd down with less than 2 minutes to go? That to me made absolutely 0 sense. You end up with an interception on a deflection. Dormady's stats get even worse. But look, the Brahmas are a very talented team. The coaching there is obviously a lot better than it is in some of these other teams in the UFL. They're a playoff team. I just don't know if I see them as a true championship contender if Dormady can't clean up his play.
Well, that was a good example. And Jared, I think you and I, when we talk, I know we joke about the 2 QB thing, but like in particular with like here we have in terms of San Antonio, that is going to be their main guy, I would think. And as we've discussed and has been brought up, by various other personnel on this show, hot and cold Dormady. That was very much a cold Dormady performance, and it was disguised by what I would say is a much worse off Renegade squad that, remember, worst defense in the league too. So even if you can't throw and you're just having a bad day and not finding the targets to make it work, that's why you just John Lovett, Morgan Ellison, just find the lanes all day. Because unless it's Mr. Redmond in nose tackle, Arlington ain't doing much. But it definitely disguised a bad QB performance.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree. He had 3 picks, and Arlington only got 3 points off of those 3 turnovers. So, I mean, he got bailed out by, them not capitalizing because they scored a touchdown. And I think one of them was a blocked field goal was the result of one of the interceptions. I mean, they convert, and it's a completely different game. So we mentioned that last week. You get good Normandy, bad, and, his first weekend, good. This week, not so good. So, we might expect a little bit of a better performance next week because he's a little bit of a roller coaster. We've seen that through now a year and a half. So.
And I want to point out really quick is the performance he had in week 4 was decent, but it could have been worse. Michigan dropped 2 interceptions. He could have had 2 back-to-back 3 interception games had Michigan come up with those footballs. I just think that's worth pointing out.
Yeah. Here's a great quote from our own James Baker over on that we talked on the Discord.
I ain't reading all that.
That's a book. That ain't a quote.
It is. But I think it highlights just again.
New York Times bestseller right there. Jeez.
Bad boy's clicking. Let you
Except it's not a bestseller because it's about Arlington. But
I almost feel bad popping out now because it's like Jared's acting like the home improvement neighbor.
Yeah.
Looking over the fence.
Yeah, just peeking over.
What's going on, Tim?
Yeah. Howdy,
Team's
neighbor.
0-5, huh? Well, if you just stop being weird on the offense and, invest in some free agent pickups, then this might not happen. But that's just my advice.
Yeah, let's look at the worst position groups from last year and keep them exactly the same. Good work, Arlington.
It's working out the way you would expect. That's why we have them at 0-5, and that's why they're at 0-5. And I'll be honest, Zach, I did you a favor this week. I got on the horn with the Roughnecks, and I said, look, did you know if you guys lose this game, there's, as of now, an 80% chance that the Michigan Panthers are going to win. And my buddy Zach needs to get his team in the playoffs because as of now, after this weekend, 80%. Red alert, folks. Red alert. 80% of the games this season, again, with the Roughnecks and the Panthers, abide by ref's law. I mean,
well, I do find that fascinating. What sane fan would call and say, "Hey, can you take the L for me so my buddy?"
Well, it's not for me. It's for you.
Team can get the win.
That's how good of a friend I am. It's not an L for me. It's a W for you.
But it's your team, my guy.
Yeah, but that's how. This is the camaraderie in the league. This is the USFL conference. This is why USFL conference is they hub together. They're friends together, and they said, you know what? You're right. Let's give those Panthers a good old W. They deserve a W today, because I mean, I don't know, the Roughnecks, whatever they are. They're either winning out or they're not winning another game. I don't know what to tell you anymore.
Whether it's you saying that you called for them to be friendly to me or not, Birmingham basically, I would say, had a cakewalk in Houston over the weekend as we'll transition over there and just kind of dive into some things. And I'll be honest with you, like we started the show, we kind of talked about how we're seeing like some of the teams, it's execution, but also their talent threshold's a bit higher up. I kind of got that vibe, and really, it's nothing I felt Houston did wrong with their game plan. It's just that they are not explosive enough to keep up with a roster like Birmingham when you can't push the ball down the field or you can't have guys that are going to be able to keep up and stay ahead of the scoring that Birmingham is able to bring. Adrian Martinez being able to break out of the pocket the way he does and how explosive he is, and being able to just take such large chunks once he breaks that first level. And he can do it all, too. It completely throws defenses for a loop. Easy comparison this week, and I dare anyone to say differently. That looked like Lamar Jackson was playing out there this weekend. Mm. That was like a prototypical Lamar Jackson type of game. Splitting it about 150 apiece, but can still make the plays either way. Need him to run? Oh, yeah, design run. He'll get you 20. Need him to throw? Oh, yeah, don't worry. He's got Jay Sternberger. Had a second touchdown, too, if Deion Kane doesn't drop it.
Deion Kane
how do you stop a guy like that?
What was up with him? I mean,
I don't know. That
was strange. I mean, that's a guy obviously very talented, one of the top receivers in the league, but drops a touchdown. He dropped that third down. that would have. I mean, at least the good thing for Birmingham is that those drops did not matter at all because it's such a commanding lead. Really didn't. Instead of a 30-point win, they won by 25. So not the biggest difference, but. Kane, I mean, for the sake of Adrian Martinez, you'd like to see him come up with those passes because Martinez would have had over 200 yards passing easy and a touchdown added onto it as well. I mean, that was a dime he dropped to Kane in the end zone.
Yes.
Yeah, it was rough, Zach. See, you said the Birmingham Stallions had a cakewalk. It was more like a bake sale because they came in and they just, I mean, they did things that you don't want.
Just set up shop and did whatever the hell they wanted.
You should have called the police, man. It was illegal in there what they were doing to my team out on the field. I didn't like it. Dude, I heard players' moms, they were weeping. Zach, weeping in the crowd, be like, you can't do that to my son. I said, I know, it's messed up, man.
That's my boy.
Yeah, dude, I'm not lying. That is what I think I have it on camera. I was showing my wife one of the clips from the ref cam, and at the end of it, she's like, "That's my boy," and it wasn't a happy one; it was a sad one. And man, it was a bad day in Houston. I'll tell you what. The weather was great. We got to meet WWE legend Booker T, Reality Wrestling. Which, if you're a wrestling fan and you're in Houston, I got some good news. It seems like the Reality of Wrestling thing might be a longer term situation. I don't know if they're going to see more of it this year. But we definitely might see more next year. But the one thing I'm intrigued about, this is actually what I'm very, very intrigued about, is I heard that the football players may go train with the wrestlers in the off season. And it might not be too out of line to see some of these Houston Roughnecks maybe be part of the action and in Reality of Wrestling, which takes place in Texas City, League City, maybe closer to Galveston. So, I'll be checking that out. But as far as the Roughnecks win, oh my guys. I mean, I was saying it on the Discord. CJ, we don't call him CJ around here no more. We call him JC. Just can't win. Just can't do nothing but lose. Just can't call up a good play. Good old JC. JC's iPad. JC, come on. Jesus Christ, give me a win. That's what I want.
Jesus Christ. Oh my goodness. I'll tell you one of the stat lines here that instantly gives away where Houston cannot. This is not a winning move for Houston. It's because the game plan got away from them too. If I am looking at the stat sheet and I am seeing only 10 design runs for running backs on a Houston stat sheet for a team that clearly needs to have a strong run presence to open up the passing game at least a little more explosively, you're going to have a bad day, or you are very much behind schedule. Reed Sinnett should not be throwing 38 passes in a game.
Not when you have Mark Thompson, which makes me wonder. Maybe Mark Thompson, maybe the injury's still nagging a little bit. He's not 100%. You didn't want to put him full force in the game. But prior to the game, they're talking about giving him, 20 some odd snaps. We didn't see that nearly as much in this game. You could see the impact of what it had on the field because we got walloped. We got beat down, broken down, battered by, yes, the giddy up 12-0, the best team in spring football. But, I mean, we should be able to. Who's the last team to beat the Stallions? That would be the Roughnecks. Who's the only team to beat the Stallions in season one? Whatever. It's Houston. Whatever you want to call them. All in, rough them up. Doesn't matter.
Bring the G logo back, guys. That's the only.
I mean, we have one more chance this season. But, I mean, it's quite possible that the Stallions, if they can get past St. Louis, they might run the gauntlet on the season, which I don't think is a good thing. I think that's a recipe to losing to the Panthers in the playoffs. You want a loss in the season. You want a Skip Holtz. I know I'm right. Skip Holtz's wife, tell your husband. I know you're watching. Let him know. Take the loss. Because here's the deal. If you don't, you're going to lose to the Panthers.
For legal reasons, we are not setting games up.
Nope. Not going there.
Yeah, tell me which game you're going to throw in, though, because I'll put some action on that one. We'll get our dudes at SPGN. Fucking, hey, dude, here's the inside skinny. Holtz is taking the L.
Jared, get on that.
The word. That's crazy.
Anyway.
Man.
Yeah, I mean, look, straight up, I mean, Houston, we knew this coming in, and we knew this coming into the season, whether we wanted to admit it or not.
Come on now.
I mean,
come on now. Mr.
Like,
Giddy up 12-0.
I think our PFN rankings have them at 8 coming into the season, despite ref's number 1 vote.
Dude, I had him at 2 that week.
That one, that's not going away.
It's
Their
one of those
defense
things
was
where
so good.
If
Like, on
this was
paper.
a 16-team slate, they would be a good team. I just don't think they have enough talent. They don't have enough firepower, and they don't have a guy who's going to be a leader. And what the strange thing is, Mark Thompson would be the prototype to be the guy, and that leader, that vocal leader, like he was with the Gamblers last year. But when he's getting 4 touches a game, I mean, you can't. He's not getting the opportunities. Again, could be an injury. I don't know. I've never been a fan of the coaching in Houston. I mean, I've talked about this before on the show. I mean, you look at week 10 last year with just some of the decisions that they made with the 2 QB system and basically ruining their potential chance at a playoff run because of that. And there's so many examples of just Curtis Johnson coach teams making mistakes. And not to mention, we want to talk about coaching. I mean, this is a team that had 3 blocked punts in 3 straight games. How do you allow that? Like, that just is a clear sign of organizational issues. I think that the problems in Houston run much deeper than the product on the field. There's a lot going on behind the scenes that, in my opinion, makes them one of the worst teams in the league. And that's beside the product on the field.
I'm just glad we have a better record than the reigning XFL champions. Okay.
Win, you'll
the feather in your cap.
I'll take it.
Jared,
it's important to me.
Yeah. I just wanted to add to what James was saying because he's absolutely right. And I forget where exactly I saw this, but Coach Johnson mentioned after the game that they went away from the run game early because tight end Woody Brandom broke his fibula, James? Or? Yeah. So he said that a lot of their run packages are out of 12 personnel. But to me, if him and his coaching staff can't come up with a solid package of plays out of 11 or, even 4 wide, something to establish some type of run game with a quarterback making his 4th start in spring football, I mean, it's just that's more so on the coaching staff than the players. I mean, that's not putting guys in position to succeed.
Well,
and you have Braden Bowman on the roster, who is a blocking tight end. He did that. You know him. He did that in New Jersey.
And they could run out of 11. So that I don't know if it's just real. I hope it's just a bad excuse because if that's true and they don't have that preparation, I think that says a lot more about that coaching staff.
Yeah, and real quick, prayers up for Woody. Wishing him a speedy recovery. Hate to see an injury like that. It's a guy, I mean, he was a starting tight end for them. Does a lot of, just the dirty work behind the scenes. So hoping for a speedy recovery and a healthy one for Woody.
100%. 100%. Yeah, you never like to see the injury out there. I also didn't like that they didn't have the injury tent kind of ready, so they had to get that set up. Well, he's like, come on, guys. These are things. This is, well, anyway, I'm angry for so many reasons this weekend, and that's just another one of them. But hopefully my Stallions will cheer me up next weekend with a guaranteed win. I mean, we'll get into that, but I mean,
looking at Memphis, I mean, I'd say it's looking pretty good. Now, it depends. If Martinez starts, I'm thinking it's a 40, 50-point win for Birmingham. If Corral starts, probably 15, 20. So,
I want to bring that up at this point. Is like even worth it because it's Skip clearly is established. It's on his schedule. It's not on any pressure schedule. They're winning. It doesn't matter to him as long as the winning continues and they're looking fine.
I wrote an article about it this week. It's like at the end of the day, Skip can do what he wants. Like he doesn't does he care about what we have to say? No.
He can look at
clearly he doesn't have to because they're winning. So
he can look at me dead in the face if I had a good argument. Say 26-3, you son of a bitch, and just walk away from me at the bar. I'd be like, you know what? That's fair. I'm gonna rethink my life.
Where's that beat, Ducky? You're late.
I mean, they need to have. They need to create a UFL Hall of Fame just for Skip Holtz to be inducted at this point. I mean, 3 losses. We're 2.5 seasons in. 3 losses total. I mean, he has better record than NFL coaches, some of them. Like, you know what I mean? I mean, most of them, quite honestly, but, you know, especially you look at a first early season coach. I mean, it's pretty damn impressive, and it doesn't matter the situation. We saw it last year. 14 players injured, loses 2 games in the season, wins the championship. This year, new quarterback room. Actually, Jamar's there. He's the third string quarterback. There's an uprise about that going into the season. Undefeated so far, 5-0. I mean, yeah, like you said, James, it's hard to knock them when they keep winning. I think he did it just to prove a point, Zach. He's like, oh, Zach thinks you can't win games with the dual quarterback system. Let me show you how it's done. You know?
I said for when you swap them in game. There's a difference when you commit to one to start the week. That's my point. But if we're being serious, he is basically saying, even if you did technicality, I am still proving you dead wrong that I have that good of a roster. Shut the hell up.
Final point for me on this game is like you're talking about Skip Holtz, obviously probably the greatest coach we've ever seen in this scene so far. It's really intriguing how there is parity in coaching in the UFL this year. There's some really good coaches, Skip Holtz, Anthony Beck, to name a couple of them. And there are some coaches that really leave a lot to be desired. I mean, I'm looking at you, Bob Stoops. I'm looking at you, Curtis Johnson. It's been rough. And to me, it's just rather intriguing that there are championship caliber coaches in the spring football scene that are currently without jobs. So I'd say that's something to monitor.
Jaron Horton.
It's a damn shame. Like I said, bring him on. We need some. Anyway, I'm not going to go there.
I don't get how you win a coaching award and then you don't even get.
You're not in the league after that point.
That's so stupid. There was something else going on there, and I'm convinced. But
well,
it is what it is.
I mean, we're going to talk. There's 2 more games left in the matchup, and I feel like there's two spots within these games that I think people will be happy at this point to see someone as amazing as Jaron Horton to come into the game and fix their effing team. Even
as a defensive coordinator.
Exactly.
Oh my God, Greg Williams! If he has a job next year,
here we go.
That's crazy. That's crazy. He should not ever be allowed to
cover zero,
baby.
Because they got
I feel like you could do Madden plays, and like that would be better than whatever Greg's doing.
The wheels fell off the freaking tracks.
I don't understand.
Yeah, just kidding. Ex-coach's recommendation the whole game.
I don't know how he has a job.
Looking dead.
That's gonna suck though if Madden's pre-programmed to have the coach's suggestions as Greg Williams' playbook. then you're really cooked.
Yeah.
Looks as PDA.
And you're getting 45 put on
what
you.
do I do?
In the Discord, people thought I might get
BC,
50.
I mean, look, their defense was really problematic, which is not surprising just given some of the struggles they had this year. But how about those turnovers? I mean, the defense wasn't given any favors by the offense. 4 turnovers for the defenders. St. Louis scored 25 points off those turnovers. 25 points. And to think, we just talked about Arlington, right? Arlington got 3 turnovers and got 3 points out of it. St. Louis got 4 turnovers and got 25. So,
well, it didn't hurt when they would get the turnover and then run it all the way back to be like, all right, we're at 1st and goal every time. I mean, Hakeem Butler had one hell of a game. I mean, sign him up. The dude deserved to rack up all those yards. But then, I mean, it just it was like a circus game for a quick second in that 4th quarter where I'm like, how is this how did you, oh my God, again, you got, oh no. I felt bad for him, and I'm not even a Defenders fan.
How did the wheels stay on the tracks that long, you ask? And eventually the dam breaks when you have too good of an offense. Honestly, for this week's Mr. Digits, I got to bring out, I was impressed to see this, but St. Louis, you guys now possess the best total defense in the UFL. I'm not kidding. I did have to verify this via the stat sheet, but according to the rundown here, St. Louis Battlehawks defense, it is swung back around. It is now basically up there with Birmingham in terms of yards per game, in terms of really just holding down the fort, even with the scoring. I mean, it's impressive. Turnaround in such a short time from the beginning of the season to now. This week with pressures getting up there too. Jordan Tomu had no time to sit back and relax. So yeah. 223 yards a game for the St. Louis Battlehawks. Somehow, we're able to snag that away from Birmingham this week. Pretty impressive stat line, and
That's
it adds to that conversation we'll have a little bit later on the power rankings. I've seen some people with the 1A, 1B talk. We'll wait on that to further discuss, but it adds to the argument. It's going to be a fun game in 2 weeks, man. The hype's already there, and we still got to wait through week 6 to even get to that matchup.
stats are one thing, but the Stallions, they got that motherfucking dog in them.
They do.
Gotta bleep that.
Show's getting out of hand.
It's okay.
Well, this is the halfway marker, and I'm telling you, I'm not joking. Wait until
This is all
PFN After
lurkers at
Dark,
this point.
because I'm telling you, I got ideas for PFN After Dark. Just imagine our Discord, but a talk show. Only
no.
I'm telling you, I already have guests lined up in my head,
No.
UFL Mike.
dude. I'm telling you, we can make a show out of this.
Well, speaking of shows, it was the circus for DC just across the board. How about two blocked punts? What in the world is going on in DC? Their specialists have really, outside of Matt McCrane, who has done a really good job this year. I know he had a missed kick this past week, but I mean, they won the game against Arlington because of Matt McCrane, so I got to give him the flowers for that. Trey Berry, the long snapper, has had a really rough season. I've been kind of paying a little bit closer attention to the long snappers this year, and every game there has been at least one or two snaps that have been ugly. We saw the blocked punts this time around where missed blocks for the punt blockers. I don't know, man. Like there's some really talented long snappers and some talented specialists that are not in the league right now. And to me, it's just surprising that DC is sticking with some guys that have not been consistent. And specifically, I'm looking at Trey Berry, who is disappointed at the long snapping position there.
Look, we talk about this, and especially in a tight division, or at least where DC's at in the division ranks, it doesn't hurt to just start and evaluate. Like, I know you're 2-2. It's okay. You might turn the ship around a little bit, but if a repeating problem consistently happens, you generally want to talk with personnel department and start debating on where you might want to start looking for upgrades mid in the season. It doesn't hurt to look, but if we're looking to win, that's a consistently bad trend. If you are giving up block punts, that is basically flipping the field for free, at least nearly once a game. I don't think that is something that I would want to be doing. I'm essentially almost hand gifting a minimum of 3 points right there on a punt block. Usually, that's how it's been this season for DC. Pretty sad, and I don't know if they'll change it again. It comes down. I've been kind of puzzled at a few of the personnel decisions at some teams. DC has been a little more active than some, but again, you're talking James. I mean, look, if there's a problem in a department, take a little bit more of a fine look at it and maybe evaluate a little bit. Doesn't hurt.
Now, the interesting thing about all of this, because I've had some serious questions about personnel decisions and why are teams not trying to improve during the season in certain spots. They are limited with the transactions they can make. You can only make about 8, I think the number is 8 transactions throughout the season. So that's why it's been so difficult for some of these teams to bring in guys to try to get new players into their system, because it's like, well, is it really worth it? Is this someone that's really going to help us change around our season? So that to me is something that hopefully next season has a little bit more flexibility, allow these teams to make some more moves, because I think the quality of the product on the field will improve because we'll have better quality players on the field. I mean, teams are right now keeping some players that probably shouldn't have jobs simply because they don't want to waste one of those transactions that they have limited to make. So
AJ McCarron.
Wow.
That's one of those rules I hope we see get amended next year, just so we see some more movement. Because honestly, I think you're right. We probably would see some of these teams be a little bit more competitive if they had some more leeway into the amount of moves they can make on these rosters. There's probably reasons behind the scenes that it is the way it is. So, I'm not going to question it, but as we head into season 2 of the UFL, season 4 of the USFL, whatever you want to look at this, season 3, 2, whatever it is of the XFL, 2.5, 3.5. That's one of those things I'd like to see expanded upon, just if anything, to hopefully see teams be able to adjust and turn their luck around before it's too late, as is the case what seemingly for Houston, Memphis, and Arlington at this point. I mean, DC still has a shot, but I mean, if they lose next week and St. Louis and San Antonio,
as long as Greg Williams
tough.
is on that team, they're not winning nothing.
Jared, I'd be curious, since you covered the Generals so closely and just kind of saw the way that team, they had a lot of talent in 2023, but just obviously wasn't nearly as cohesive. Do you see like some of the same things here for DC, like specifically like quarterback wise, running back wise, anything like that, or is it just more of a general thing? What do you think?
Yeah. So first off, I'm not the biggest fan of Teamu. I think he's solid, but I think he's more so a product of whatever weapons he has. But yeah, I mean, it's from 2022 to 23 with the Generals. They lost obviously Turpin to the NFL. Darius Shepard went to the Battlehawks, and Perez went to originally the Vipers. So and there was a lot of turnover there, and I see a lot of the same things. I mean, they have a lot of similar pieces on defense, but which was the same with the Generals, but it just doesn't seem like they're having that same success on that side of the ball. And yeah, they lost a lot of playmakers, and same thing with, I thought DeAndre Johnson would make up for that with the Generals, and he didn't. And Teamu leads the league in picks, so I mean, he's trying out there, and but it's hard with losing all those guys.
Yeah, he did that in 2022 also.
Yeah, that's why I'm not a big I'm not high on Teamu, because from what I've seen, I haven't seen great play. I know last year he played well, but I think a lot of that was there was the perfect storm. Their offensive line was much better, and they were kind of just rolling over some of those defensive lines. So a lot more time. He had more running lanes. Yeah, it's
had the best running back in the league too.
Yeah. Special shout out, by the way, for in the Battlehawks side to Nico Bolden. Gets signed the week prior and then makes an impact on one of those block punts, by the way, this week. Thought it was really cool. I got to give praise to ESPN on how they did build that up too. You come in, you only get a few plays, instant impact, and sometimes that, especially when you try to go to the NFL level, when we talk about going from here to the NFL level, special teams is kind of that in to kind of stick and then go next. Really, really great to see someone make an instant impact coming right back in that way. That helps a ton, and only is going to help energize his chances to kind of keep making impacts elsewhere. So love that little bit. Just one little broadcast nugget really stuck out to me this week. I had to bring it up, and just a great kind of wraparound story for a quick signing right back onto the roster.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and Nico Bolden was the guy that was in training camp, was one of the final cuts, and actually had gotten let go right around the same time Channing Stribling gets brought in. And then Channing Stribling gets let go, and Nico Bolden gets brought back. So kind of an interesting little storyline there, and typical spring football, just everything kind of weaving together.
Mm-hmm. No doubt about that.
Yeah. Well, with the Battlehawks, one last thing on this. I think I brought this up earlier. The one good thing to see out of that game is Anthony Beck learned from last year and just rack up the points. You could make the argument that, it's not a good look to throw another touchdown at the end of the game when you're up by 3 scores. But you know what? After last year, you had would they have a 7-3 record and they didn't make the playoffs, right? Like, that's got to sting when it comes down to points. Get those points. It doesn't matter. Get those points. I'm not mad at him. I actually respect Anthony Becht a little bit more. That's some Skip Holtz-esque coaching, because remember last year, what was it, 42-2?
Yeah.
Twerk and Haley wasn't too happy after that game, but you know what? Skip Holtz.
That was pre-Twerk Haley.
Yeah, that's what sent him off the edge and made him start twerking. Was that loss?
The pre-Twerk era.
He probably learned that move after the game that night. Anyway.
Oh my God.
What's happening on this show? I don't know. I take 3, I barely show up for the last 3 weeks, and then here I am just throwing it.
Well, we got one final game, which to kind of manifest this, and I will acknowledge it this week. Congrats, Ref Slaw does push past 80% as Michigan does come in and get a win over Memphis. really kind of, when we talked about this game this week on UFL podcast, the main thing I wanted to see was, two of the worst lines in the league, who steps up and who wins in the trenches. And by far, we can see just from the fact that Michigan was kind of able to do most of the part what they wanted just on the ground and pound at the run game. Danny Etling didn't have to be too much of a contributor where he had to handle all the load, that they were able to get things done.
Huh?
Troy,
What do you say?
Ignore Ducky.
hey, he was about to say something. I was like, wait, what's happening here?
Go ahead.
I don't think Ducky could handle the load.
I'll jump
Phrasing.
in for Zach there.
Good for Danny.
Zach, I think you're completely right. I thought Danny did a really good job of like controlling the tempo of the game, letting the game come to him, not trying to force the issue throughout the game. I mean, I didn't really notice him make much, if any, mistakes at all. Dropped a couple nice deep balls down the field. I thought he let Wes Hills kind of take control offensively, and it was a nice balance of Etling knowing when he had to make a play and knowing when it was time for Wes Hills to make a play. And John DiFilippo post-game said, they were doing a lot of RPO action throughout that game, which is something that you can do when you have a Wes Hills in the backfield. I mean, this was definitely his coming out game this year for Hills with 3 touchdowns against his former staff. He kind of talked about it post-game too, how, he had a little something to prove. So I thought it was an interesting dynamic. But Etling, I mean, comes in, EJ Perry's out for the year, and I think this offense looks just as good with Etling.
I don't know. They're just roasting me in the chat.
Oh, Chris, come on, Chris.
I don't know who that guy is.
Oh man, Chris, a regular fan of our shows, and we appreciate John. But dang, dang man, James, the show's about to get taken off Ducky's YouTube Kids app. Oh,
halfway through the season, man. This is where the fun starts happening. I guess
the roast Ducky show.
Oh my God! Look, besides Ducky stopping me mid tracks in my my phrasing issues, I think I'll tell you one thing I wanted to say. Etling, I liked for showing signs with Michigan. I think getting Wes Hills and Matt Colburn, both of them equally involved, and getting them being the focal points this week for that offensive production was key. And hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Early on, it was working. They continued to work it. And credit, they still found opportunities in the pass game. I mean, second half, Marcus Sims came to light and basically helped put away Memphis when things were getting a little too dicey. Because, of course, this is Michigan, by the way. It has to be slightly dicey. There has to be plays that go awry once in a while, muff punts and the like and whatnot. But they did get it done. And I think for the Memphis side of things, I'm kind of curious, the line's not going to get better. They gave up 6 sacks this week, and clearly this is rock bottom. I think the rock bottom offensive line in the UFL right now. What I do ask, and I am intrigued by, is I thought Troy Williams did a better job actually pushing the ball downfield, which I'm wondering if that is something you have to consider. Like, he's mobile, still sacks are equal between the two, but it felt like the explosiveness was slightly better with Troy. His deep ball accuracy I was really impressed with this week against Michigan.
I agree. For the first time, at least since that first week against the Roughnecks where they pulled off a miracle, do we see the Showboats actually seemingly get some movement on the ball? Now, did they win? No. Did they still have problems with the line? Yes. But Troy Williams, and I mean, again, going to back what we were talking about earlier, people dog on the Maulers. I think people focus on that first year of the Maulers, but they were in the championship last year. So, Case Cookus was in the championship the first year. You have 2 championship quarterbacks on your team still struggling. There's still some things that the Showboats need to work on, but I think Troy Williams is going to be a net positive for this team. Granted, we see him next week in the week post after that. We'll have to see.
Both are hip magnets is the problem. Somehow they can't avoid pressure. It's amazing that you have 2 QBs that merge into one roster that on paper shouldn't have had to deal with this, and yet it's same story, different day. SSDD, baby. That's where we are.
So for me, one of the most disappointing storylines of the year, I've talked about some defenses this year. I've talked about Arlington plenty. Memphis has a problem. And yes, we can look at the glaring issue of the offensive line, but their defense has been a real thorn in the side of this team. I think their defense has actually been about probably just as big of a problem. All right, so let's backtrack a little bit. Week 1, obviously they played well against the Roughnecks. Doesn't really say much, just given Houston's offensive production throughout the year. I mean, pretty much every team has shut them down. Even Arlington shut them down to 17 points. So, I mean, not the most impressive stat line there. Week 2 marked the beginning of the end. That collapse against San Antonio has sent this defense into a downward spiral that I don't know if they're going to recover from it. Since then, they've given up 30-plus points in all 3 of their games. Birmingham ran all over them. Obviously, Michigan did the same thing. St. Louis did the same thing. And right now, looking at the stats, I mean, this team has given up over 310 yards per game, which is 3rd worst in the league. They're giving up 26.4 points per game, the 2nd worst in the league. So, I mean, you look at some of the stuff, and look, Carnell Lake, I mean, he had some good moments last year with Memphis, but at some point, something's got to give here with this defense. They have been really poor across the board. To allow 160 rushing yards and 5 rushing touchdowns this week against Michigan, a running back room that really had been struggling to try to find its rhythm up until this week. I mean, they're not getting any pressure defensively. The linebacker play has been mediocre at best. I mean, across the board, and the secondary, a lot of struggles there as well. I know they made a personnel move to bring in DJ Daniel back, but I look, Carnell Lake, I've been disappointed with his unit this year, and the offensive line, yeah, that's going to be a problem. But if you can't get stops defensively, your season's over.
It's almost like that Brahmas blown lead just basically broke anything that Memphis had going through 7 quarters to begin the year. Because, I mean, seriously, we were talking about how impressed, like, seriously, we thought that it was going to be a one-off. The Carnell Lake's unit essentially was just left on the field for too much time back in week 2, and that, you know, things get figured out offensively, can start finishing drives. We can talk about this different, but no, the Memphis defense has completely slid backwards ever since. It has been a consistent downhill struggle since that performance. And sure, they played some good talented teams since then, but I mean, it ain't looking like it's going to improve too much. You know, they are definitely, we talk about the top heavy bottom half nature. I mean, they're definitely right now feeling like they're going to be more just seeing who finishes 3rd in the USFL conference is the thing. I don't see Houston or Memphis barring a Michigan collapse. And keep in mind, Michigan has played, if we're talking already interconference matchups, they played the 2 toughest interconference matchups already on their schedule. Not saying that DC is going to be an easy out or anything, but the back half of the season for Michigan definitely benefits them to just kind of lock this thing away and see if they can even find somehow to keep up with Birmingham. But I mean, I don't know there's still stuff to play for. It just doesn't look very good right now. And especially if you're a Showboats fan, you're more trying to see if you can just find something to make it look like it's working by the end of the year.
Yeah, personally, I'm shocked as well. I fully expected Memphis to, get the 2nd seed prior to the season. I was expecting them to be competing with Birmingham in the USFL conference. And honestly, you guys hit on a lot of the points. I mean, the offensive line is like borderline inoperable. It's like, if you've noticed, typically they've come out first drive of the game. They've scored touchdowns, more points on the first drive of the game than most other times. And I think that's a lot just because they're, going quick game in the passing game. They're able to run the ball early on. But as defenses start to settle in and, figure out their blocking schemes, I mean, it's brutal. And I think that lends to the struggles the defense has had because the offense isn't picking up many first downs. They're punting, giving good field position. There's been, Williams had 2 picks yesterday. Cookus has thrown a couple. They're putting them not in the best positions either. But me too. I thought Carnell Lake's defense they were great at the end, the back stretch last year when they won, I think 5 straight. I mean, they were phenomenal. So that's kind of what I was expecting. But yeah, it's rough on all sides of the ball for Memphis.
Yeah. I'll tell you one thing though. You mentioned those picks. Even with that being said, Kai Nakua stood out once again. He continues to be one of the bright stars in this league, especially on that Michigan defense this season. That being said, and something that I think is going to hinder Michigan moving forward that might be a problem for me is I've seen week over week, there's been some miscommunications in the secondary, especially on these deep balls that have been thrown multiple times. When teams start pushing down the field on Michigan, it seems like assignments in either the zone coverage or in the handoffs are getting blown on a regular basis. I don't know if there's a good way of adjusting that, but it's been a pattern week over week now with San Antonio and even against Memphis. Memphis had several deep throws of 20-plus more that were just perfectly placed in the zone. That's the thing that the offense is key on and is going to be something that Mike Nolan probably is aware of, that I'm wondering how quickly you can fix that. It's a good secondary. Pressure still needs to be worked on. I kind of give a mulligan to the Michigan sack total because Memphis's offensive line is that bad. Remember, this is a Panthers team that was tracking least amount of sacks in the league before this week. So I can't fully give too much stock on this week, but it is something to kind of be noted is that if you can't get pressure, and if Kainaku is not over there to kind of save you, or Levante Taylor, it's been some liabilities in the secondary if teams are given enough time and find the right hole.
Once I mute myself to cough, and then I just coughed right into the mic.
Lovely.
Yeah, I thought for Michigan this week, I was really impressed with the offensive play, and specifically Marcel Belfay, the offensive coordinator. I thought he did a really good job of knowing the weak points of Memphis, which granted their defense has a lot of weak points, but specifically Memphis has really struggled to generate pressure up front. I feel like the defensive line play has been a little bit disappointing this year. I mean, actually more than a little bit, but specifically, a couple of those guys that have been key playmakers the last couple of years, just their names haven't really been called much. And I thought, that's why we saw the Panthers run the ball so much, is they knew their offensive line could get a push. They knew that they'd be able to kind of establish that run game, which would then open some things up for Danny Etling. And that's exactly what happened, and you end up running away with the game. Now, I will say, Mike Nolan post-game talked about how, even though Michigan was up by a lot throughout this game, they knew that at any point Memphis could get hot. And Memphis did get hot for like a little stretch there in that third quarter. I mean, they pulled it within one score. It's just, I think it's so frustrating watching the Showboats team because we know the talent they have. We know the players that they have who are proven in this team. It's just like they can't put it together for 4 quarters, and ultimately, if you can't do that, you can't win ball games.
Well, similar to the Panthers are scared to put it away, which put the Showboats in the position to get within 1 score. They could have gone for the field goal. They didn't go for the field goal. They punted away. What happens? The Showboats run it all the way down the field. The Panthers end up in the same damn position as they were. And even the announcers were like, look how excited they are to do it for the field goal now. Now, they missed it. It was a windy day. It was a long field goal. Don't see a lot of misses out of Jake Bates, but it's a windy day outside. It's expected. But you have to wonder, even if they went for that field goal and missed the field goal, would they, they may have stopped the Showboats from even getting within that one possession. But yeah, I saw Jake in the Discord going like, just shut the game down, just go for the kill. And it seems like the Panthers, maybe it's a cat thing. They just like to toy with their prey. I don't know what it is, but the
track record says they should. And look, that's one thing that scares me at Michigan. And it's like, why, and we'll talk power rankings momentarily here, why I can't buy moving them anywhere is it's still, there's artifacts of the old Michigan from years prior where, we're seeing a better team, the best one so far out of the last 3 years, but some mental errors that I just can't trust against winning teams like a San Antonio or a St. Louis or especially a Birmingham, that they are better than I think pretty much the rest of the field, the most part. Some people say DC hasn't played them yet, and we'll find out, and very much so soon enough, but it's a good question. They're 3-2. They definitely deserve to be 3-2 right now. They've handled business when needed. It's just, are they top cream of the crop? I'm not 100%. They're currently cream of the crop in the USFL conference, so helps out a ton in that regard. And as we switch over to our power rankings, gentlemen, not much movement this week. I'm going to throw them up on the board here. Really, the only switch is actually the 6 and 7 position. This one shocked me, and I do want to. We'll discuss a little bit. But Memphis moved up a spot this week. Houston, remember, got a boost to number 6 after getting a win over Arlington in week 4. And now Showboats and Houston both take a loss this week. Both were, double-digit scores, but the contingent of our USFL panel was feeling a little bit more impressed by the Showboats' performance. Ducky, okay, any thoughts on that? Anything that maybe is off?
With the power rankings, my only thought is there's a ginormous gap. Like, I'm talking huge gap in between 1 and 2. Huge. Massive. Like, there's probably 8 spots in between 1 and 2. And then the rest of them.
I mean, we're going to find out in 2 weeks. That's the beauty of spring football.
Right.
And then
we're already seeing the debates on that, by the way, that we have a few people in our own postings on UFL Newsroom that are saying it's actually a 1A, 1B scenario. Now, I will say we don't associate with 1A, 1B. We pick 1 and 2. There are definitives. There are not split votes here. So, that being said, 3 did pick the number 1 overall pick. That's how we debate on the split, but it's 1 and 2 right now. But it's going to be a fun debate moving forward.
One big gap into.
Is all the thing.
Yeah, I think the only way you close that gap out is the Battlehawks beat the Stallions in 2 weeks, right? And
even then, I'm still putting Birmingham 1.
I might too. I might honestly as well, right? Because like I said, Birmingham, you want that loss in the season. And quite honestly, you probably want that loss to a playoff contender. Don't show them your best tricks right now. Give them your B tricks. Put in the third string quarterback. Put in Jamar, right? Just put in somebody
Stanley.
anybody. Just do anything. But throw it. It took me as I was like, Stanley. Who is
Side note: I have to update on James Baker's dyslexia. It is a fun conversation. The Renegades are very much on top. It is wonderful to be in Bizarro World as well.
Holden Aller is having a great season, isn't he, Baker?
It still baffles me that the two of the teams that have the least amount of travel, and the team that has the least amount of travel is the worst in record and on our list. I wouldn't have predicted that, if anything, because you would think they would, be more rested, be ready to go, this and that. Well, no, doesn't seem to. So for all the people that thought that Birmingham had the upper hand advantage season 1, which yes, things are a little bit different. There's their own stadiums, but the travel aspect doesn't seem to be doing Arlington any favors. I mean, the middle of the pack, we can look at that. I mean, this is where you kind of get things really bunched in, because when it comes to the Brahmas or the Panthers, you could probably interchange them if you ask me. The defenders probably have the edge over the Showboats, so I couldn't argue that. But definitely the 6, 7, you could probably swap around either direction and it would make sense. You could, and dare I even say, put Houston at number 8 and Arlington at number 7, and it would still make sense. Even though Arlington doesn't have that win, they've probably looked more impressive in some of their losses than Houston has, if that makes sense. But I'm happy with the way things have shaken out with this, and hopefully we'll end the season as not number 8 in Houston. We'll
I
see.
agree. I agree on that point where, Arlington, I mean, they've had a couple of losses just by the skin of their teeth. And I think now, the first couple of weeks, those losses, they were close, especially look at the loss against DC and St. Louis on last-second field goals. Now the culmination of those losses has just caused that organization to just spiral out of control. I've already dunked on them enough. I don't need to do that anymore. Memphis. So for me, the only reason why I put Memphis over Houston is purely because of Troy Williams. He did not have a great game. He made some mistakes, but it was his first start since the USFL championship last year. And he was going up against a really good defensive team in the Michigan Panthers. So this is a guy I think I really like what he brings to the offense. I think, Case Cookis is obviously a phenomenal quarterback, but in this sort of scheme, I feel like Troy could actually fit the team better. Like Zach, you were talking about him pushing the ball down the field, but also using his legs. He was creating some plays, extending plays. I know he got sacked 6 times, but I mean, at the end of the day, when you've got very little protection, there's not a ton that you can do on that end. I'd really like to see Williams get another start or two. Let's see how he looks. It's going to be a real test for him now because he just played Michigan. Well, now you got to play Birmingham. So that's going to be tough for him. But I do like the upside that he brings to the team. And that's the only reason why I just slightly at the edge. I mean, teams 6, 7, and 8 here, I think, are just some of the worst teams we've seen in this scene in a while.
I mean, I'll tell you, I think like Memphis, it really hurts because I think just any slight improvement of the offensive line, would help a ton. Troy Williams being a little bit more mobile. I mean, Case Cook is his too, but like still, they're both given, no matter who's behind there. I mean, again, 6 sacks. And keep in mind, like I said, Michigan has been pretty lackluster in that department in getting to the QB this year and causing havoc in the backfield. So, I mean, that just shows you what the state of that front five is. And there's not much else you can do, especially now you talk, James, with the limitations on even any free agent pickups. If you want to try it, it's like, do you even dare? And it's kind of hard to say or reason to do so if you just run out of opportunities or if injuries come up to play. That's the thing, because you also have to manage those at the same time. I do, like I said, sans the interceptions, I do think Troy does make this a little more explosive, and I felt that they were pushing the ball. I like Case. That being said, though, I've actually been a little unimpressed with some of his deep ball accuracy this year. It's been multiple underthrows at times, which has surprised me. I don't know if that's just pressure or if that's just was early season like connection woes or just getting things down and being worried about getting hit. But Troy, at least on the move, was able to make some pretty impressive throws when given time, and probably avoided a few more sacks than what he took on Sunday. So, we'll see how it goes. I think that's going to help out a ton. They don't have a run game either. It's just like Arlington. There's like no run game present right now for Memphis either, and that hurts them that much. But that 6 through 8 debate, I mean, you can carve it up one way or another, like the ref said. It's just kind of, they're all three of these teams are all over the place. I just put Arlington down there because it is, like we talked earlier, that was the most uninspiring, like, close game that I have seen in a minute that the Renegades played this past week. And so it's kind of hard to move up a team like that when you have, out of the 3, was more winnable, but it didn't feel like they were, even then, they didn't feel like they were in it the entire time. And I think the coaching woes are the worst of the 3. Is why I got to put them down there too at 8 still.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I had more to add, but you guys all made good points. I mean, I don't feel the gap between 1 and 2 is 8 spots like Ducky thinks, but I do think there's
9 spots.
Maybe I'm in the minority, but like I think there's a pretty decent gap. I expect the Stallions to win when they play St. Louis, honestly. So I feel like that's a big gap, but then it's kind of feel like that's tier 1. You can maybe put the Battlehawks there, then the Brahmas, the Panthers, and maybe you could throw DC in there as that middle tier, and then the bottom 3, it's kind of like feel like you could really just order them however you want from 6 through 8. I don't think it makes that much of a difference. So,
final thoughts on the power rankings, gents.
For me, I would swing towards the side that thinks St. Louis can give Birmingham a run for their money. I mean, I think this is a team that has just been so dominant these last couple of weeks. It's a team that's really found their identity, right? You bring in some new pieces offensively. You get someone like Ja'Cour Pearson back, and now you're looking at a defense that is at its peak. We have not seen the Battlehawks play better defensive ball than what they're doing right now. So with that in mind, I mean, Birmingham for me is still number 1 because they're undefeated. We have not, look, again, I've said this before, I'll say it again. Until you beat Birmingham, they're always going to be number 1, right? I mean, we can't knock them out of that position until they lose. They have won 12 games in a row. They're 26-3 throughout this USFL/UFL campaign of theirs. So you can't, I can't knock them down until they lose. St. Louis, they got an opportunity to do that. Week 7, it's going to be a good one. I'm excited. AJ McCarron's return. I know we'll preview that game next week, but it should be rather interesting coming up here in the power rankings. I think St. Louis on paper is just as talented.
No, and I agree. Just to retort real quick, I totally agree. The one thing that worries me is I don't know if we've heard anything yet, the significance of those offensive line injuries that St. Louis had. I mean, they mentioned how they brought the same 5 guys back from last season, all off season. And if that offensive line is healthy, I totally agree. I mean, they could put up 40. I think they have a bit of a more explosive offense than Birmingham, but with the offensive line, it is a little worrisome. And if those guys aren't healthy, 2 weeks from now when they play Birmingham's pass rush, it could, McCarron could have some issues. But you're absolutely right. It's not like they don't have a chance. It's certainly St. Louis has a shot to knock them off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd say both teams.
Bless you on that.
Thank you.
Hey, nice save. Bonus points when we do the points in a minute, James. I'm going to mark that one down right there. Look at you picking them up.
A gun.
Way to go. Way to go, guys. Week 6 will be interesting. I think the theme of the week that me and the ref we'll talk to kind of tease later will be trap week is what I'm going to put it, because if I'm looking at just quick preliminary look ahead, Birmingham's got Memphis, St. Louis has Houston. St. Louis at least gets to play at home though. But hey, trap games in every level of the sport are a real thing. You don't want to have
Arlington
too. Right now. That too. I mean, exactly. Like, look, Michigan. We just talked. Like, they feel like they should be the one that solidifies the 2 spot. But again, still half a season, and all it takes is one of those other 2 teams playing a possible unit in Birmingham or St. Louis that's just off 1 week, that doesn't kind of mentally focus in and maybe looks ahead. We could be talking a different game, and the Renegades, I don't know. Hopefully things kind of get more adjusted. They still play close. Michigan is prone to making things more interesting than they should. Week ahead's going to be fun. Trap week, week 6. That's definitely the theme.
I'm looking forward to it. And I can't wait to talk about it on this. Can't wait to talk about it on this week's UFL podcast, because I have so many thoughts on this Battlehawks Roughnecks game. I know. You might not believe it, but I think the Roughnecks might be able to pull it out. I'm going to go into more detail this Friday on the show.
He's already concocting the plan. He knows.
8-0 maybe. I don't even know. Last week was 9-0. That's all I know. This week it's 8-0. I don't know. What's that?
Wouldn't it be 7?
I don't know. See, I told you. I don't know. I don't know what's going on anymore. No, because I can win 5, 6, 7, 8. No, we can win 8 games. We have the 1. There's 5 games left. That's 6. 7 for the playoffs. 8 for the championship. Right? Am I stupid? Am I doing dumb math here?
I'm homeschooled and I know this.
Oh, no.
I'm not going to. Oh, well, anyway, let's just move on.
6-0.
Wow.
We'll get there.
That's some points taken away.
I love it.
I think I need some more points because of that, actually.
We'll debate that momentarily.
It's called pity points.
I mean, we did pity points last week. I'm not going to lie, but we'll see. I'll give it a moment. Let's go around the horn though. You'll know yours soon here. So as I put it, everybody gets 5. Everyone's going to get 5 as a base. You're on the show. I got to knock that out. Ducky for analyzing Greg Williams and for bringing on Appa. By the way, hello Appa. Good to see you.
He was sleeping. I just woke him up.
Oh, one. I was going to give you 2 bonus for the cat, and I'll give you 1 because you woke up the cat.
2 for the cat.
No, what? No, you get 6.
200.
Yeah, matches Tiny Panthers mark. That's what I'm going to put.
So what are we at, 6 then?
Well, Appa gets the same as Tiny Panthers, so you can put the same number. Ducky gets 6.
Okay, hold on. Tiny Panther. Okay, Tiny Panther's at 51. We'll put 52 for Appa, and then 6 for Ducky. Got it. Boom.
There you go. Ref, you also get 6. I was gonna give you 7, but you fumbled the math. You just fumbled the math, man.
I still think I'm right, but I'm not going to argue it because I'm probably wrong, and I don't want to look that much dumber than I
the bag was there, and you miscounted the bags and the.
Well, I just don't see how. Hold on, let's do the math here. Okay, there's 5 games left this season, right?
Yes, sir.
Right. If we win all those games, that's 5 wins plus the win we have. That's 6, right?
Yep.
And then we win the playoff game. That's 7.
Oh, so you're counting the what?
Where did you think 12-0 came from?
Why are you counting? Like the whole point of
12-0 was from the giddy up. What are you talking about?
The games that are ahead. We're counting the win from 2 weeks ago too.
Yeah.
We're counting all of the season. So we had a game 2 weeks ago. We
8-4.
I don't know where the 4 is coming in. I think there's some muddled math somewhere in the mix. Okay, I just want to make sure it is 8. It would be 8 wins though when we win out, right? Okay, all right. At least I'm not that dumb. Okay, so I get what, 6?
You get 6. I'm gonna just leave it at 6.
It should be 7. I'll put 6.
I appreciate the recovery effort, but we'll discuss next week. You got next Monday to bring that up. Jared, I'm going to give you a 7, and you know what? Mainly this is a pity point because I feel like the amount of times you said, "Man, you guys had a lot of great points," I would have said the same. I'll give you 7 for that.
Appreciate it.
That's right there, my guy. And James here, yeah, we'll give you 7 as well, my man.
You gotta give him more than that. He just got back home, and it was his birthday.
10 for the road trip and the birthday.
All right, 10 altogether.
There we go. 10 total for James.
Okay, got it. And then how much are you giving you?
I get 5. I always get 5.
Just 5? All right, well, we're gonna give you 6. There. How about that?
Yeah. See, someone always gives me one because I can't. I don't feel like I should be the one giving myself points. It's like a politician giving themselves a raise.
Dude, I'm just telling you, I need to go through this list soon and start like managing it because it went from tallies to numbers. This is like
let me see if I can solo you up here.
I think you need like a cryptographer from World War II to come and like decipher this.
Oh God.
We'll get there. I might do that this weekend, or I might do it at the end of the season. We'll make a video out of it alone because it'll probably take me an hour to figure out, okay, that's a 2, that's a 1. Oh, no, that's a 21. Okay. Yeah.
Eventually we'll have to post the ATU points total graphic. It will be coming up. Every person who has points will be on that list. Cats are leading the way hard, though, man.
I think Jace is still in the lead with 69.
I forgot Jace does have more.
Yeah,
that's right.
It's going to be hard to beat Chase with 69, I think.
Damn good show still with him. Well, guys, unless anyone has anything else to add, I think that is ATU for this week, everyone. Good
I think
show.
So. Yeah.
As always, love joining all of you on here. It's always a good time. Give pets to Appa for all of us, Ducky. There you go.
He's taking a bath on camera.
Good cat.
Sign him up.
Until next week, everybody. Thank you for everyone tuning in the chat as always. Love the conversation in there. Love always the discussion and the debate as well. And hey, having a little fun with the polls too. By the way, which 2 polls this week we did anyway. Most people believe that if there's anyone in the USFL conference out of the bottom 2 that'll get a playoff berth, it is Memphis right now at a crisp 81%. And then the other decision on will the Renegades win a game this season? 2/3 of the audience says yes, which I do believe they will. Question is where. It is certainly getting harder as the year goes on, but they are still keeping it real. And hey, scrappy teams that are with no wins, eventually someone's going to usually pull out a win is all I can tell you. Until next time, guys, thanks for tuning in. Catch us with everything PFN and UFL Newsroom on all of our platforms. pfnewsroom.com for all the latest UFL coverage that we bring you every week. You don't want to miss it. Also follow us at Around the UFL on all your favorite social media platforms. And check out UFL Podcast End of the Week to get you ready for Week 6 ahead on at UFL Podcast. That episode drops 9 a.m. Eastern Time Friday morning. You don't want to miss as me and the ref here are going to break down all things ahead and all things that were in between as we do for that next show. And hey, while you're at it, follow all these guys on here and all of our PFN content creators and insiders and writers. They are fantastic people. Jared and James and Ducky and company are bringing us some quality stuff or just fun commentary as well. We have a great community going on, and check out the Discord at 2 in the description to join all of us on there for even further talk about the wonderfulness that is spring football and the United Football League. Until next Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific, I am Zach Kylan saying so long. Thank you for tuning in as always, and keep it real, people. We'll see you around Friday for the UFL Podcast, episode 84.
Arlington sucks.